live with your caffeine demon. It's okay. So for those that are, I mentioned this when the mic was off, but for those that are code adverse, that get apprehensive when they actually see code, we're not going to look at any code today. I'm purely going to try to convince you to either A, want to be a web developer, or if you're starting down your web developer journey, not to give up if you're feeling kind of left out or left behind. It will work out. There's a lot of apprehensions when it comes to web development, especially for those that are non-traditional. And we are all non-traditional for the most part. There's only a handful of us that are actually going through a computer science program. And they're the super smart ones, but that's okay. There's work for all of us. So yeah, this is intro to web development, what it is, how they do it, and why you should do it too. We have some upcoming meetups I wanted to make a small note about. If you're interested in any of these, definitely go to. We're sponsored by Starspace and Techlahoma. Starspace owns the building, and Techlahoma is the organization that works through this and runs a lot of these events, and they sponsor us as an organization. And Techlahoma also sponsors OKC Sharp. They have lightning talks coming up on Monday at 11:30 in the morning. If you want to hear anything about C# or some of the new interesting things that are coming out, they have some really good speakers that are going to be coming up there. If you go to meetup.com, you'll actually be able to see the speakers' names. I don't know them by heart. Kimberly asked me to mention them. She knows them by heart, I'm sure. OKC PHP will be meeting up on Tuesday, so you have two meetups that are kind of bespoke about, so Monday and Tuesday specifically. They'll be going over queues and commands. I'm not a PHP guy. In the past, I have not said maybe the most awesome things about PHP. It's probably because I'm JavaScript. It is what it is. But I want to show these guys some love, make sure that they continue to have good turnouts. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs out there for PHP, so it's not a bad language to get into if that's what you prefer. My deal is usually JavaScript or some C#. So with that being said, why should you listen to me? So I put in a who am I slide. If this is your first time, I see some new faces. To your first time actually coming to a free CodeCamp meetup, I wanted to explain who I am and why me. My name is Daniel Ashcraft. I've been working as a web and software developer for around 3 years. I started dabbling in some VBA back in 2013. And prior to that, I think I took one really bad programming class and dropped out mid-semester because I hated the teacher. And that, who hasn't dropped out of a class because the teacher just wasn't going to cut it? So from 2014 and on, I taught myself how to program. I took one intro to programming course in 2015. It was not the greatest decision of my life. I got an A in the class, but it was not a good experience. I don't have a degree in computer science. I have an associate's in applied sciences, mostly in hard sciences like physics and chemistry. I actually wanted to be a chemical engineer. I went to school for 1 semester, and it was far too expensive for me. It put me back almost 20 grand. I am a co-organizer for FCC OKC. We had a small group that used to meet up. We used to meet up in a Starbucks, and I kind of took it over and built it into what you see today. For the most part, we had some help from a lot of people that kind of came and assisted me with setting it all up and keeping us going, which Starspace and Techlahoma are big parts of that. Otherwise, we'd still be meeting at a Starbucks, and I don't know how many of you will fit at a table, but it'd be kind of hard to carry on a conversation. So they played a huge part of this. So I want to take a small detour, and for those of you that have been doing any kind of programming in the web in any way, shape, or form, this is going to be information you've already seen or heard before. I apologize. I wanted to keep it very low level for anyone who's coming off, right from the start. I don't want to try to discourage people by going too hard, too fast, and sometimes we forget the basics. So in the most simplest terms, web development is any work you do for websites on the internet or extranet. I put in extranet in there because a lot of times you may work on a web-based application that isn't actually, privy to the outside world. It's an internal-based website. It's still the web. You're still programming. You're still a web developer, but nobody else is going to see it except for the inside of the company. Leaving imagery aside, so like graphic design, web development consists of anything and everything you see on every single website. Graphic design is a little bit different. There are some web developers that go into user interface and user experience design. There are some that don't ever touch the front end at all, and there are some that just work on the back end, which is the database or any of your business information layer. Job growth in web development is extraordinarily high, 27%. I actually went and did an interview for Caleb recently, and they asked me what do the job prospects of web development look like, and the information I actually found was that if today every single boot camp and every company that teaches software, every college released all the candidates, there would still be empty jobs out. So there would still be leftover jobs if all of us graduated today and became web developers. So that's how many jobs there are currently. And there are always exponentially more jobs available than there are web developers to fill them. So I get in conversations all the time about whether or not AI is going to take over for web developers and WYSIWYGs. They're just not advanced yet. Until we actually get a computer that can think for itself, you will always have a job. Whether or not you're going to be doing the same thing today as you will in 5 years, probably not, but it's going to be very similar. It's going to be web-based. Salaries for web developers are extraordinarily high. Median is $84,000 nationally and $62,000 locally. I find that local salary to be roughly correct. Of course, it's based on experience and what platform you're in and what business you work for and what industry you work for. But for the most part, those are accurate. That median salary is inflated, of course, because of places like San Francisco and New York City and anything in Silicon Valley, really. But that's not unheard of even here in Oklahoma. I think if I were to put a theoretical cap on salaries in Oklahoma for like an average developer, probably somewhere around 110 or 120,000 or so, which are the highest that I've heard of so far with people with many, many years of experience. So I don't know about you, but 64,000 or 62,000 will put you in a pretty comfortable position living in Oklahoma with one of the lowest costs of living in the United States. That's equivalent to something like 95 to 110,000 in California. So very, very good living. So how do you become a web developer? And this is where my slides apparently didn't work with my transition, so you get to laugh at me real quick. I did go the self-teach route. I tried college, but it wasn't for me. One of the options is you can go to college and get a 4-year degree in computer science or related field. If you go and you get a degree in computer science, you can probably get a job in computer science. The length of time it takes you is about the same as someone who's self-trained. So when you get out of college and you wait 3 to 6 months of applying and applying and applying, that's about how long it takes whenever you self-teach yourself and you really start applying and presenting yourself to employers. The time it takes you to get hired is about the same from what I've experienced. Going to a boot camp and within 8 to 12 weeks, you're going to have the skills to get hired. I know you've probably heard and seen the $10,000 to $15,000 boot camps, even the smaller ones like OK Coders that are much less expensive. They teach you the basic skills it takes to go and get an entry-level job. They usually do something that colleges don't. They'll have a career fair or something like that after you get out of the boot camp where they have relationships already pre-built with employers that will try to get you hired at employers they've built relationships with. So that's an added small plus. A lot of people knock boot camps, but there's nothing wrong with boot camps. As long as you go to a reputable one that has the job fair at the end where they've built these relationships. You obviously don't want to go to a boot camp that you've never heard of, that's the first time they've run, that doesn't have some kind of big sponsored support by a company, in the local area. And you can find reviews for boot camps everywhere because we as tech people, we tend to spend a lot of time on social media. It's an unfortunate consequence of a job. We spend a lot of time on computers and we talk a lot. Self-teach. Yay, that's what we're all doing here, technically. There are resources like Free Code Camp. That's a shameless self-plug. Codecademy, Data Camp. There are many, many resources, and we actually have a website out now, fccokc.com, and we have a resources page where you can go and view resources we found, and they're generally free. A lot of the material, there's almost no material out there that you can't find for free. Sometimes if you want a specific delivery platform like a visual aid or maybe a one-on-one mentor, you would actually have to pay for it, and that's where you find Udemy and things like that. They give you a more personalized experience, maybe a higher level of learning. If that's for you, that's fine. Pay the money if you find value in that. I personally didn't. I don't know if I've ever actually paid. I think I paid for my programming, my intro to computer programming. No, it's actually programming 1 at OCCC. I paid $1,800 for that class, and I don't know. I don't know if I found value in it. I found value in the experience, but I was already working for the most part as a developer by then, so it wasn't tremendously valuable for me to go back and start working in Java or something like that. So I did go to the self-teach route once again. You could argue that I had some college experience, but it didn't actually pertain to development itself. And some applications I don't put my associate's degree because it's not necessary. It's not information that's really going to be that valuable. On some I do. I've never been told explicitly that the reason why I got a job is because of my associate's degree. I I've never come across that. I've never come across anybody who's ever gotten a job for that. I know a gentleman who has a bachelor's in music and got a programming job, but bachelor's in music has almost nothing to do with programming. Misconceptions. This is where we get into a little bit of fear-mongering. And at the end of this, we'll go through and we'll answer any of your questions that you have. Hopefully I have an answer for them. If not, we have a wealth of knowledge in Techlahoma in general, so you can come to any of our other meetups and ask any of these questions you want. And also the Slack channel as well. It takes too long. So for those who go to self-teach route, they think to themselves, it may take me several years to learn how to do this particular thing, and I've got to work and I've got to support a family. How am I going to find the time? Time is a big deal, but what I've found is more important than time is just consistency. Whether you do it once a week, twice a week, or 7 days a week, you have to just set up a time, 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever time you have, and you just need to be consistent about it. If you take the time, you put in the effort, you will reap the rewards. There's no way to show up to things like this and not actually gain useful information. It's almost impossible. You're going to learn, vicariously. You soak it up like a sponge, so to speak. I've seen people be hireable within 3 months, and I've seen people take up to 3 years. Usually anything after that, and they've given up and they've gone on to other things. It's completely dependent upon how much time and effort you invest into it, like anything else in life. So a common thing I tell people that are usually working minimum wage jobs in Oklahoma and think that that's what they're going to be doing for the rest of their life because they don't have a bachelor's degree is that you can go to a new job and you can learn how to flip burgers or whatever it may be, or stock towels from McDonald's or Walmart, and it's going to take you 3 months or so to figure that out. Or you can go and you can just learn an actual valuable skill and make significantly more than minimum wage. Significantly more than minimum wage. So it's really about what you put into it. It's hard to do, and it involves math. This is why my wife won't get into it, so this may be personal to me. She hates math, and she thinks programming involves a lot of math. Kind of. I think the concepts are similar. Once again, this is one of those little anecdotal things. I do not believe you're born knowing how to program. I didn't know what a computer was when I was 3. I don't think anybody really did for the most part. We knew that we had this thing and it could do cool things. You have to learn it like everyone else. Some people compare it to learning a different language. I've compared it to learning a different language in the past, but some people I've found out through Facebook groups like Newbie Coder Warehouse and things like that, some people are actually really apprehensive about learning new languages. So there's not a metaphor you can come up with that won't make people apprehensive about a particular job. So I try to drop that one. It isn't for everyone, so if you hate working on the computer or you just aren't really that in tune with working with other people, might not be the job for you because you're going to work with a lot of different people and you're going to work on the computer all the time. It just is what it is. Until you can actually speak and code and you don't ever have to look at a computer screen, you're going to be using a computer a lot. The actual difficulty to get an entry-level job in development is very low, and I mean that it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because we have so many open jobs, the barrier for entry is usually fairly low, but the time it takes you to get that first job is usually pretty high. Somebody has to take a chance on you, especially as someone who's self-taught, because you have no true validation of your skill sets until you get that first job. So it's that whole, I don't have experience, so I can't get a job because I don't have experience cycle. There are things that you can do to mitigate that, but you have to really prepare for that. You have to expect it. Just not give up. And then here, this one's from my wife. Math is a prerequisite, but only on a basic level. Obviously, addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, pretty important. Knowing how to do calculus 1, calculus 2, or advanced engineering physics, not all that important. In fact, almost never important. Strong math skills do transfer over for the most part into programming, but that's not something you can't learn over time of just programming. Those things normally are told to you by people who are smarter than you in that particular field. So if you work for an accounting firm and they want you to do some very advanced accounting arithmetic, they're going to give you the formula and they're going to tell you how to do it, and then you just go and program it. You don't actually have to really understand most of the intricacies that go into it. And if it's very advanced and that is a particular job, they're going to hire people with that particular skill set. So it's not something to be wary about. And you're not going to be asked to solve integrals or anything like that. So forget math. Not really. Kimberly's going to kill me. For those that don't know, Kimberly is very, this is one I threw in here for her as well, because she has got a very, very heavy background in math, and she thinks it's super important, which I do too, just not as important as she does. I won't be able to get a job. I can't lose my current job. And will I make enough to survive? This is mostly for those that have never really worked in a high-paying career field, those that are working 2 minimum wage jobs to support a family of 3, or even if you're just, hardworking person that ran out of luck at about $13 an hour. Happens all the time in Oklahoma. I mean, our median wage is extremely low across all spectrums except for oil field work. So, losing your job is a pretty devastating thing. If you're used to making $13 an hour, you're probably living paycheck to paycheck. That's where I think self-teaching and that drive outside of work is really going to put you where you need to be, especially coming to things like this. That's why we do it on Sundays. That's why almost all of our coffee and code meetups on weekday nights, because we don't want to interfere with your work schedule. We want single mothers with kids to be able to come to these classes. We want them to be able to do this job because they can literally work from home and make great money. We want the hardworking father who has a child sick at home or whatever it may be, to be able to get a job where their employer values their time, pays them appropriately, and they have better benefits. Oklahoma's not really known for those things. We're known for, work hard, get money, get dirty, we'll pay you $17 an hour, and that's great, and that's not knocking anybody who wants to work a great blue-collar job. But if you don't want to raise your hand to go to the bathroom or actually get breaks, I've got the job for you. I've worked in sales, I've worked in heavy equipment, and I've seen the best and the worst, unfortunately. And there's some horror stories of the far worse, but neither here nor there. Would I enjoy the job? Some people are interested. They have less, lower thresholds for whether or not they'll do something. They just want to know if they're going to like it. So for them, I have a simple list. Do you enjoy solving problems, both visual, data-driven, business, and related to customer service? If you enjoy helping people just in general or solving problems that people will actually benefit from, development's probably for you. You're going to enjoy it quite a bit because that's nothing you're going to do is not to solve an existing problem. Conversion. We need more people to use our website. Okay, well, whatever you develop is going to be with that in mind, and you will see those numbers either trickle up or trickle down. Customer service. How many of you have worked for a job where you use an internal computer application, like a sales job, where you have like a little interface and you have to like press the control key and up and down, or like answer a phone or anything like that? Imagine if you could create that and make a better application that 3 million people used every day and made their jobs easier. Those are, the cycle for that feedback, positive feedback, is very, very short. So you're going to get that feel-good sensation in a very short period of time over and over and over again. Some projects take longer, but for the most part, you're going to get all that almost immediately. So you'll find value in that. Constantly learning. If you like or you enjoy learning something once, learning it all the way through, there are positions for you in computer science. You can be that old guy that sits in the back on an old, Mac from the 1980s and only programs in Fortran, and there are jobs for you for that. But for the most part in web, the technology evolves constantly. So you're constantly learning a new technique to do it the bigger, the better, the faster way. If you enjoy that constant learning process where you are always kind of on your toes, always kind of moving forward and learning new things, going to be very, very happy in web development specifically. If not, once again, there are jobs for you. They're just a little bit different, and the process of actually getting them is a little bit more difficult. You have to be an expert. Would you enjoy the job? Great pay. If you enjoy making money, like good money, not like money, like, yay, I can get a house, I can get a boat and a car, and whenever somebody gets sick, I can actually afford the deposit for my insurance or whatever it may be, you will, for the most part, enjoy development unless something crazy pops up. This is where I will go off on a tangent because I don't see any time limits. I'm kidding, Ava, there's time limits, I promise. Web development is one of those, so coming from a heavy equipment and sales background, I'm used to staying at one job for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and my dad's been at his job for almost 11 years now, and prior to that it was 22 years. And that may just be one of those blue collar things. In web development, you'll see things like 6 months or a year or 2 years. And then other than that, it would be like 10, 15, 20 years. And there's a reason for that. And it has to do with raises. Most companies and big organizations, they'll give raises that are based on a certain percentage of your salary. So they give you like 3%. And they give you 3% because on a piece of paper in HR, it says every year give them 3%. Nothing else. Like you're not really negotiating that base amount. So if you're making 50,000, you get 3%. Okay, that's great. You're pushing 55 now maybe, right? But if you switch jobs, we'll give you 75. So who's not going to switch jobs for $25,000 per year? Same job, same general work environment, different company, right? That's a big number. So you'll see people switch jobs because nobody wants to accept 3% if somebody's going to offer 30, 40, 50%. My first job switch was a tremendous job switch in terms of salary. I think I made close to 40, 45% in terms of a raise, if you will. And I got to work from home all the time, which was great. You know, kind of the clothing optional and the fridge is always open type of thing. I gained some weight. I ate a lot. But for the most part, I made a lot more money. You know, I went from like around $21 an hour to $33 an hour. I mean, who's going to turn that down? Not many people. That's a considerable amount of money. So the pay is great, and you will see that and have to handle that particular issue in your career. But that's not a bad issue to have. What's a bad issue to have is you have a job today in the oil field making $20, $21 an hour, and then tomorrow you don't. Congratulations, you're laid off. There's no job for you. We'll let you know if there is. You can come lay pipe. There's not a whole lot of that in this industry, unless you work for Sandridge Energy or an oil company, in which case, you know, developers may be laid off. But technology never goes away. In order to keep those things running, they generally have to keep developers on staff. Those are usually the last people they get rid of because of that fact. They literally can't work. They can't make the rest of that money. Great benefits. Benefits are usually dependent upon the company. They're generally good. So I think I get 70% off my insurance. And if my HR employer is out there listening to me and it's like, no, that's not true. Sorry, I didn't really read the paperwork. I just know that they were great. I don't pay very much, and I'm satisfied with what I have. Very rarely will you get a no insurance or no benefits related job, and those are usually internships. So most of the time, your full-time employers are going to offer you benefits, and they're going to be good. You're usually going to get 2 weeks of vacation up front. There's not a whole lot. I mean, sick time is usually dependent upon how often you get sick, but there's not a whole lot of stipulations to that. If you're sick, please don't come into work because you're going to get everybody else sick. They actually do that here, by the way. Usually if you're sick, for the most part, every employer that I've been in, they don't want you coming into the office where you're typing on a keyboard and coughing everywhere because you're going to get everybody else sick. So they're really going to, no, don't worry about it, stay home. We'll take care of you. No big deal. There's the next one, which is respect in the workplace. This may not be a big deal for you guys, but coming from heavy equipment and sales industries where you're kind of just a number on a piece of paper, this was a big one for me. I've owned bookkeeping businesses. I owned a construction company for a little while. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial for the fact that I hate the way employers in Oklahoma treat you generally as a human being. It's usually very, very depressing for me. I apologize if there's anybody who actually likes the way they treat you in here or has a great employer. That's great for you. These are just my experiences. In web development, I've never had a bad experience. It's always been extremely professional. And if you think about the job atmosphere around web development, it makes sense. There are so many empty positions and not enough people to fill them. It takes 6 months, a year and a half to fill your position. They don't want to make you mad, right? You're a commodity, right? The moment you say, okay, I don't want to work here anymore, they lose that productivity, it goes down to 0, and they have to start that whole process over again. It is not an easy process to start or stop. So you are valued and in some ways kind of revered because you are the computer guy, which has its own set of consequences if you're asked to change a hard drive and you don't know how, which I don't know how, so I tell them no thank you. But you are revered in that manner. They treat you with an air of respect and responsibility that you may not be used to. For me, it was a little bit of a culture shock because, once again, I won't name the employer, but I did work for a sales company where I had to be on the phones all day long, and you were measured based on not your customer satisfaction, but based on how quickly you got off the phone. or how many times you were able to sell or retain a customer. So I literally had to pause my phone calls, send a mention to my supervisor, may I use the restroom? And he would respond, yes or no, we are too busy, right? And in development, I get out of my office and I open the door and I walk to the bathroom and then I come back. Well, wash my hands, of course. That's it. If I'm tired, I've been in my office, the lights down low and listening to EDM music. That's totally cliche. I don't actually listen to EDM music, but I would. I feel like getting out and getting some sunshine. I get up, I unlock my door, make sure it's locked on my way out, turn off my lights. I go outside for a walk. I've worked for employers that will walk by and hand you a $50 gift card to Starbucks and say, hey, you look like you're working too hard. Go take a break for a little while, come back. And those are interesting things if you've never experienced that. I don't know how many of you have had an employer that values to that extent. Shout out to Atmex, for instance, one time. They threw a buffet banquet, right? I was in the middle of a project, and they were like, hey, we're throwing a banquet. And I'm like, I got to get this done by Friday. And they're like, look, you're going to get it done by Friday. Don't worry about it. Go take 30 minutes an hour, go out there and hang out and talk to people, right? Okay, I get paid the same either way. And that kind of comes down to the timelines in which you're expected to get certain things done. So if it takes you a month to get a project done, a 30-minute break outside to get some sunlight is not going to really kill that time frame, right? And a lot of times you can get them done faster, or they'll know the reasons why it took you a little bit longer. But they're never going to really, stifle whatever it is that's going to make you more productive. So, except for working from home, that's an interesting one. Employers actually look down on remote work, but all studies show that you're actually like 20% more efficient when you work from home. But nobody actually values that. Not in Oklahoma yet, though. There are a lot of remote jobs everywhere else, but Oklahoma is kind of a catch with that one in particular. Great work environments. Like I said previously, they set up a banquet buffet, and they had us go out. They catered lunch every day. That was a cool little neat feature. I worked downtown when I was with Atmex, so I got to walk to Cafe 7 or anywhere I really wanted to go. And get something for lunch or take a 15-minute break or call my buddy upstairs in graphic and advertisements and be like, hey, you want to go get something to eat real quick? I need to stretch my legs, and I would go. Usually not. There's kind of you may have an image of in your head of what a developer does, and it may be like a closed office door with maybe windows everywhere so everybody can see what you're doing on your laptop, or you're in an office building like this and everybody's just on a laptop and they're all working. I've never experienced that in Oklahoma. There are open office working spaces like out here, but they're generally more secluded. In my current job, I have an office with 4 walls, the only windows on the door itself. But that's not really the deciding factor. What is the deciding factor would be like, hey, I don't like my chair, it hurts my back, and the next day you have a new chair. Or, hey, it'd be really cool is if we got, a Keurig out in the office area so we don't have to brew a pot of coffee or whatever it may be, and the next day you have a Keurig, with 1,000 pods or whatever it may be. Or you tell the guy, hey, I like this cafe espresso, I don't like this cafe espresso, and they go and they get that one because they're trying to make you happy and keep you and retain you, which is different from a lot of other fields. So, that's a tremendous benefit. You hear about things like pool tables, ping pong tables, YMCA trips, all kinds of things as benefits in terms of work environment as a developer. And those are all, for the most part, true. It is company dependent, though. So I've never, they were talking about getting an Oculus Rift in this workspace, which I thought would be cool. Ava, by the way, what happened to the Oculus Rift? Okay. Well, as long as we get to play them for free. So if you get Oculus Rift, right? Interesting stuff. I don't know if any other company that would let you, does Walmart let you, you know what I mean? There's benefits that come with being a web developer you're not going to experience in most other career fields. Also, to go back, that median wage, $84,000 for a software developer in the United States, I did look it up. And my original career, major was chemical engineering. That's actually about $3,000 more per year than a chemical engineer with a bachelor's degree and a PE. So, yes, you could essentially be self-taught and make as much as a professional engineer, which is a little scary if you think about it, because man, maybe we should pay engineers more, but I'd rather get paid the same. So it's going to wrap it up for the most part for my talking, but I do want to answer questions, and this will be the end of the stream after I'm done announcing our next meetup. Our next meetup will actually be over HTML, what it is, how to use it, and general best practices about it. So we're going to see code. Today was going to be more than likely the only day you're not going to see code in this place. This was about as entry level and basic as it gets. So if you are feeling apprehensive, we're gonna do some self-teaching before the next meetup for sure. But starting next meetup, we're recycling our entire curriculum. So we'll be going back over HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then we're gonna pick a framework. We haven't decided between React or Angular 2 yet, maybe both. But there's gonna be we're gonna go through the entire cycle, hopefully within 6 months, and then our last job fair was pretty successful. We're probably gonna have another job fair at the end of this next 6 months. So we talked about boot camps where they do it in 8 to 12 weeks. Ours is a little bit longer because we go a little bit slower. But yeah, if this is your first time, please keep coming, and I hope at least I convinced you during this entire thing that if you haven't started doing web development, you might consider it a career. And if you have started doing web development and you feel apprehensive, like, where am I going to be in the next year? Is this really possible? I want you to feel as though it is possible and be motivated to keep doing it and keep continuing, because there's so many success stories where somebody has actually stuck to it or even quit and came back to it and wound up with an amazing career, making fantastic money and being able to pay their bills for once. I'm not going to use his name, but another anecdotal evidence. See, you guys, if this is your first time, you won't know about my tangents. There's a gentleman that I was friends with, actually got me started in programming. He taught me a little bit about C#. We got into it. He switched career fields and went and started helping people with telecoms. He was the person you would call when your phone line went down. He made decent money and got decent benefits, but it wasn't what he enjoyed doing. He made okay money, $20, $21 an hour or so. He came back to web development around April of this year and really stuck to it. I helped him as much as I could. He did a lot of it on his own. And in August, he got his first web development job, making not his very first in terms of being paid, that is. He did some volunteer work and helped me, of course. Got his very first web development job for 70 plus. So in terms of salary, that's the highest entry-level salary I've ever seen. So it can be done. And it does happen all the time because there's such a need for it. Anyways, that's enough for my little Daniel's tangents. We're going to have to find a name for him, I swear. Daniel's Talks, or A+. I don't know. We pulled that one. Yeah, hope to see you next Sunday. We're going to turn off the stream, and then I'll answer any questions. Or you guys can tell me how horrible my slides were because of that one error.